More isn't always better. When you worship productivity, your self-respect becomes conditional on your ability to meet forever-changing goalposts. So, what is this toxic productivity? What are its effects on mental and physical health, as well as society? How can you overcome it? Let's find out. Just relax for a moment and ask yourself a few things. Do you think you have too much to do? Too many tasks? Are you able to cope with all the expectations you place on yourself? How many hours are you working a day? And is it enough? Well, if you think you're working most of the time and yet so much is left to do, if you feel helpless and overwhelmed with high expectations of yourself, you're pretty likely living with toxic productivity. There could be many reasons for why you constantly feel a need to work. Maybe you want to earn more or achieve more. Maybe you have high expectations placed on you by family, toxic boss, or worse, yourself. There are many reasons for having so many tasks. Some people are almost unendingly busy. They are so engaged in endless tasks that they barely have time to breathe. However, it's impossible to keep running like this all the time. Humans need sufficient physical and mental rest. Else, this constant need to tick off various tasks will destroy your health. This is where productivity becomes toxic. So, what is toxic productivity? When humans created machines, people said we wouldn't need to work as many hours as the machines would do most tasks. Similar things were said about computers and other gadgets. People are now saying this about AI finally being able to replace humans. However, the truth is quite different. Machines, computers, and AI, none have reduced or are going to reduce the number of tasks to be done by humans. On the contrary, they have somewhat increased the number of hours that people work. Even in Spain, many people are forced to give up the tradition of the siesta in favor of being productive. It's important not to confuse toxic productivity with just being a hard worker. Toxic productivity is a modern phenomenon, and it is rising, causing much damage to physical and mental health. The constant need to do something, where even free time from work must be harnessed to unlock some sort of productive potential. And yet, it is normalized. 40% of people think that burnout is an inevitable part of being successful. And yet, people feel they can barely manage their life while measuring their self-worth on the basis of how much they get done, and starting to feel guilty for wasting time on hobbies or just relaxing, even after working long hours. Nothing seems to be moving, and stress and disappointment creep in. This is toxic productivity. Toxic productivity is a kind of behavioral disorder, though medicine still does not recognize such diagnosis. But if you doubt its existence, just consider a situation where you would have to stop working for reasons like illness or a holiday. Many people feel guilt about this time spent stepping away and not being productive. But did it actually result in something catastrophic? Most likely not. Of course, by not doing some extra tasks, a person might earn a bit less or experience discomfort and anxiety. But it appears that the need to be productive is, in a sense, rooted in a need to gain control. Yet, in many cases, keeping oneself engaged mentally and feeling the need to do something all the time is more harmful in the long run to yourself and your relationships. The rise of digital technology has considerably added to toxic productivity. Toxic productivity does not mean doing something all the time. Toxic productivity is more about a feeling and urges that you need to do something, and then feeling guilty for any time not spent working and achieving. It is about constant reminders. Your brain, phone, laptop, and gadgets all might be reminding you of a need to do something, causing immense stress. Living life with a constant worry about doing something. Such worries may actually make people unproductive. Not only that, constant worries may make people less creative. To stay creative and effective, people and their brains need prolonged breaks, as well as to hit the like and subscribe buttons for more content like this. Anyway, what about the rise of toxic productivity in modern society and hustle culture? Toxic productivity and hustle culture are on the rise and are being promoted by some highly successful people or influencers. It's worth understanding that if some famous and successful people say that they work for 18 hours a day, it does not essentially mean that they are working for that many hours. Quite often, large corporates want to promote toxic productivity as it benefits their organizations. Companies often expect people to work longer hours, either explicitly or through creating toxic work environments with high expectations, which then get passed on to you as the worker. Of course, this isn't actually more productive at all, it's less productive, as more hours overall doesn't necessarily mean that more gets done. This has been known for a long time. When the industrial age started, people commonly worked in factories for long hours, like 12 hours a day for 7 days a week. However, people soon realized that a similar level of productivity could be achieved by working fewer hours and fewer days. But these companies still try to squeeze as much as they can out of their workforce to avoid having to hire extra people, and trying to get as much as they can before people burn out and leave. It's no surprise then that people promoting the hustle are often some of the most toxic people themselves. Speaking of which, there are many influencers and famous corporate leaders who try to promote the hustle, #grindset. Just take the example of one of the most famous corporate leaders, and a classic example of someone who's dumb, but because they have money, they keep failing upwards. Elon Musk. Elon talks about working 8 hours a week sustainably, and that he's worked up to 120 hours a week consistently before. That's 17 hours a day if you work 7 days a week. Now that's obviously toxic. It's also worth pointing out that, while you might be busy for 16 hours a day, actually working for so many hours is not possible. Just take Elon himself. He seems to spend most of his day on Twitter, despite working minimum 80-hour weeks. Elon Musk is a classic example of someone promoting toxic productivity, but there are others like Gary Vee and even more mild-mannered ones, like Abdaal for example. You'll note that a lot of people talking about hustle, grind, side hustles, productivity are often selling their own courses on how to become successful. But what are the health effects of toxic productivity? Let's look at the health effects at an individual level and a societal level. The issue with toxic productivity isn't just working long hours, although that does have its own problems. The biggest issue is the constant worry about being productive, the feelings of inability to achieve everything, and guilt over taking time to relax and not do anything. Many people just keep working, worrying, and trying to accomplish more. However, in reality, the stress of toxic productivity leads to a dark path. Toxic productivity means constant anxiety, and it may also lead to depression, not to mention damaging someone's relationships with other people and themselves. People feel less able to take time for self-care, to do things like cooking healthily, or exercising, or sleeping properly, to name but a few things. This may ultimately lead to higher healthcare costs for individuals and society at large. Unfortunately, anxiety, depression, various mood and emotional health issues, and metabolic disorders like obesity are on the rise. Perhaps much of this is to do with the shifts in modern technology, working patterns, and toxic productivity over the decades. After all, toxic productivity is just the modern, trendy name for something that has been developing for decades, if not centuries. In recent years, sleep disorders, depression, high blood pressure, and other chronic diseases have risen considerably. Pretty likely that toxic productivity is contributing to the rise of these health disorders too. Another issue that is also worth mentioning is the role of toxic productivity in stress and neurodegenerative disorders like dementia and cognitive decline. This is because stress has been linked to dementia, although more research is needed. If you want to learn more about the link between modern work, stress, and health problems, let me know in a comment and subscribe for more. In short, constantly worrying about various tasks will not help. On the contrary, it may even spoil your life and your current and future health. It may result in increased healthcare costs for yourself, your family, and society. It's likely already putting undue stress on public healthcare services. People must learn to overcome toxic productivity. So how can we do this? How can you overcome toxic productivity? There is no right or wrong way of overcoming toxic productivity. However, psychologists have made some recommendations to overcome this constant worry. Set your priorities. Just remember that not everything is urgent or needs to be done immediately. Most things can wait in life. People living with toxic productivity often end up doing tasks that may not be of much importance. Psychologists say that if you cannot decide about the importance of the task at hand, then you better ask yourself, what will happen if I do not do this in the next 24 hours? When you get choosy about what does or does not need your attention, you also create space that allows other people to step up and problem solve. Strengthen your emotional intelligence. Review what it is you're feeling about particular issues and tasks and why it is that you want to take an action. Can you name those feelings? What is the unmet need driving you to take action? And what does this tell you about yourself? By identifying these, you may be better able to find what really matters to you and prioritize better. Enhance your curiosity. Spend more time understanding what it is you're trying to achieve. Ask open-ended questions about the outcomes, who's involved, issues, factors, and so on. This might also stimulate your creativity. Find new and easier solutions. Set boundaries and make time for self-care. Taking time out from ticking things off your to-do list to do things like exercise, hobbies, meditation, and socialize. This relaxation is productive in and of itself. After all, you're resting and getting peace of mind, preparing you for the next day. It's so important to set aside particular times to make sure you stick to self-care, such as going to the gym or whatever else it might be, then actually sticking to this, which may mean setting boundaries with other people. In addition to these, you can also get help. Delegate tasks to others. If you have an issue of trusting other people with tasks, then reset your expectations around the work, or consider dedicating time to teach others how to do those tasks, and being clearer in your instructions. Find ways to break those tasks into smaller stepping stones, some of which might be delegated to another person. As you start to trust people to take things away from you, it gets easier and easier. You may also realize that not everything has to be perfect, so if another person can do a good job rather than the perfect one, then that is still enough. Clean house. Remove toxic influences from your life, such as by unsubscribing or unfollowing particular influencers that make you worse. What's your experience been of toxic productivity and being unproductive? What did you do to overcome it and avoid burnout? Let other people know in a comment below. Again, toxic productivity is not the same as working hard. It's constantly feeling a need to do something and beating yourself up about it when you don't. You can be a hard worker, work long hours occasionally, and still have sufficient time for self-care and be well adjusted. By protecting your peace, you can protect yourself from the negative physical and mental health effects of toxic productivity and stress. Reduce the risk of anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, as well as metabolic health problems and weight gain. When you're trying to be productive, make sure it's your choice and serves your personal and professional goals, while allowing you to take care of yourself and others. If you're interested in learning more about stress and societal health, or other topics in health, biology, and medicine, click like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. Check out my playlists for related videos. Leave a comment about what you'd like me to cover next, as it really helps me out. Sources and further reading are available in the video description. See you in the next video.